The morning sun cast long shadows across the empty bus stop on Maple Street. A man in his 40s sat beside a teenage boy in a wheelchair, neither of them speaking. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken pain and years of resentment. Then the father stood up, looked at his disabled son one last time, and said 5 words that would haunt him forever: "I can't do this anymore." He walked away, leaving 16-year-old Daniel alone at that bus stop with nothing but his wheelchair, a backpack, and a note pinned to his jacket. What happened next would change both their lives forever. Because sometimes, when we're at our lowest point, angels arrive in the most unexpected forms. And sometimes, the people we abandon are the very ones who teach us what truly matters. Asterisk if you believe that every person has value and deserves love, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story will break your heart and then put it back together in ways you never expected. Asterisk. Daniel Hayes had been born with cerebral palsy, a condition that affected his muscle control and movement. He couldn't walk without assistance, his speech was slightly slurred, and his hands sometimes shook when he tried to hold things. But his mind was sharp, his heart was kind, and he loved learning about everything from astronomy to history to classic literature. His mother, Caroline, had been his champion from day one. She'd fought insurance companies for his medical equipment, spent countless hours in physical therapy sessions with him, and never once made Daniel feel like his disability was a burden. She'd homeschooled him until middle school, then fought to get him into regular classes at Lincoln High School, where Daniel had thrived academically despite the physical challenges. "You're not your wheelchair," Caroline would tell him. "You're Daniel. You're smart, you're funny, and you're going to do amazing things in this world." But when Daniel was 14, Caroline died suddenly from a brain aneurysm. One moment she was making breakfast and laughing at Daniel's jokes, the next moment she was gone. Just like that. No warning, no chance to say goodbye. And Daniel's world collapsed. His father, Robert Hayes, had always been distant. Robert was a construction foreman who worked long hours and spent his evenings at the local bar. He'd never been cruel to Daniel, but he'd never been particularly involved either. Caroline had handled everything related to Daniel's care, his education, his medical appointments, his daily needs. Robert had provided the paycheck and not much else. After Caroline's death, Robert tried to step up. For a few months, he struggled through the routines Caroline had made look easy. He learned to help Daniel get dressed, to prepare meals that Daniel could eat without difficulty, to drive him to school and therapy appointments. But Robert had never wanted this life. He'd never signed up to be a single parent to a disabled teenager. The resentment built slowly, like rust eating away at metal. Robert started drinking more heavily. He stopped taking Daniel to therapy. He began making comments about how expensive Daniel's medical equipment was, how much easier his life would be without these responsibilities. "Your mother wanted you," he said one night after too many beers. "I wanted a normal son. One who could play catch, work construction with me, make me proud. Instead, I got stuck with this." Daniel had learned not to respond to these comments. He'd learned to make himself small, to not ask for help unless absolutely necessary, to pretend his father's words didn't cut him to the bone. By the time Daniel was 16, Robert had reached his breaking point. The bills were piling up. Daniel's wheelchair needed expensive repairs. The school was requesting a new laptop for Daniel's assistive technology. Robert's girlfriend, a woman named Brenda who made no secret of her dislike for Daniel, was pressuring him to deal with the situation. "There are places for kids like him," Brenda would say. "Group homes, care facilities. You've done your duty. It's time to think about your own life." Robert knew that abandoning his son was wrong. But he was tired, he was angry, and he'd convinced himself that Daniel would be better off without him. That someone else, someone better equipped, would take care of him. That's how they ended up at the bus stop that Tuesday morning. Robert had told Daniel they were going to visit a new therapy center. He'd packed Daniel's backpack with a few clothes, his medications, and his identification. He'd written a note explaining Daniel's medical conditions and needs. Then he'd wheeled Daniel to the bus stop on Maple Street, a busy intersection where someone would surely find him quickly. "Dad, where are you going?" Daniel asked when Robert stood up to leave. Robert couldn't look at his son's face. I can't do this anymore, Daniel. I'm sorry. Dad, please. But Robert was already walking away, his shoulders hunched with guilt and shame. He didn't look back, afraid that if he saw Daniel's face, he might change his mind. Daniel sat there in his wheelchair, watching his father disappear around the corner. He looked at the note pinned to his jacket like he was a piece of luggage being shipped somewhere. Tears streamed down his face, but he made no sound. He'd learned years ago that crying didn't change anything. Cars drove past. People walked by on their way to work. A few glanced at the teenager in the wheelchair sitting alone at the bus stop, but no one stopped. In a city of millions, it was easy to assume that someone else would help, that someone else would care. Daniel sat there for 20 minutes, fighting panic. What would happen to him? Would the police come? Would they put him in foster care or some institution? Would he ever see his home again? His room filled with books and his mother's photographs? He thought about his mother, about how disappointed she would be in his father. But more than that, he thought about what she'd told him in the hospital, the day before she died, when somehow she'd known the end was near. Daniel, listen to me carefully, she'd said, her voice weak but urgent. Your disability doesn't define your worth. You are valuable because you exist. You matter because you're you. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're a burden. Promise me. I promise, Mom. And Daniel, when things get hard, remember this. The people who truly matter will see you. Not your wheelchair, not your disability. They'll see your heart, your mind, your soul. Those are the people worth holding on to. Sitting at that bus stop, abandoned by the one parent he had left, Daniel tried to hold on to those words. But it was hard when the world kept walking past him like he was invisible. Then a sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the curb, and everything changed. The Mercedes was the kind of car Daniel had only seen in magazines. Its windows were tinted, its paint job gleamed in the morning sun, and when the driver's door opened, a man in an expensive suit stepped out. James Mitchell was 55 years old, a self-made millionaire who'd built a technology company from nothing and sold it for a fortune 5 years ago. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and his silver hair was perfectly styled. Everything about him screamed success and wealth. James had been on his way to a board meeting when he spotted Daniel at the bus stop. At first, he'd driven past, his mind already on the day's agenda. But something made him look in his rearview mirror. A teenage boy in a wheelchair, sitting alone, with tears streaming down his face and a note pinned to his jacket. James knew that image. He'd seen it before, decades ago, in his own past. He made a U-turn and pulled up to the bus stop. Getting out of the car, James approached Daniel slowly, not wanting to frighten him. "Excuse me, son. Are you okay?" Daniel looked up at this stranger in the expensive suit. His first instinct was to say yes, he was fine, because that's what he'd learned to say. But then he thought about his mother's words about people who truly see you, and something in this man's eyes made him tell the truth. "No, sir. I'm not okay." James's gaze moved to the note pinned to Daniel's jacket. "May I read that?" Daniel nodded, too exhausted to pretend anymore. James unpinned the note and read it. His jaw tightened as he absorbed the words. This is Daniel Hayes. He is 16 years old. He has cerebral palsy and needs help with daily activities. His medications are in his backpack. Please take him to social services or a care facility. I can't take care of him anymore. Robert Hayes. James felt anger rise in his chest, hot and fierce. He'd seen many things in his life, but abandoning a disabled child at a bus stop was beyond comprehension. "Where's your father now?" James asked, his voice carefully controlled. "He left," Daniel said quietly. "He said he can't do this anymore." "And your mother?" "She died 2 years ago." James was silent for a moment, processing this information. Then he made a decision that would change both their lives. "Daniel, I'm James Mitchell. I'm going to help you, but I need you to trust me for a moment. Is that okay?" Daniel looked at this stranger, this wealthy man in his expensive suit who had no reason to care about an abandoned disabled teenager. But his mother had said that the people who matter would see him. Maybe this was one of those people. "Okay," Daniel said. James pulled out his phone and made 2 calls. The first was to his assistant, canceling all his meetings for the day. The second was to his personal attorney. Linda, I need you to research something for me immediately. What are the legal implications of finding an abandoned minor? What are my obligations? And what are the child's rights? I need answers within the hour. While he waited for Linda to call back, James sat down on the bench next to Daniel's wheelchair. He didn't speak right away, just sat there in his expensive suit on a dirty bus stop bench, a gesture that wasn't lost on Daniel. Can I ask you something? James finally said. What do you want right now? If you could have anything, what would it be? Daniel thought about it. I want my mom back. But since that's impossible, I guess I want to not be thrown away like garbage. I want someone to think I'm worth keeping. The raw honesty in those words hit James like a physical blow. Daniel, listen to me very carefully. You are not garbage. You are a human being with infinite worth, and what your father did was wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong. But I am a burden, Daniel said, his voice breaking. I need help with everything. I'm expensive. I'm complicated. My dad was right to leave. Who would want to deal with all my problems? James turned to face Daniel fully. I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone outside my family. When I was 8 years old, my older brother Tommy had a severe seizure disorder. This was back in the 1970s, when people didn't understand disabilities very well. My father couldn't handle it. One day, he took Tommy to a state institution, signed some papers, and left him there. Just abandoned him. Daniel's eyes widened. What happened to Tommy? He lived in that institution for 12 years before I was old enough and successful enough to get him out. By then, the damage was done. Tommy had been neglected, sometimes abused, treated like he didn't matter. It took years of therapy and care to help him recover. He lives with me now, in my guest house. He's 53 years old, and he's one of the most important people in my life. James's voice grew intense. I learned something from that experience, Daniel. I learned that disability doesn't diminish a person's worth. What diminishes our humanity is how we treat people who are vulnerable, who need help, who depend on us. Your father failed that test, but that says everything about him and nothing about you. Daniel was crying openly now, tears of pain and relief mixed together. I just want to matter to someone. You do matter, James said firmly. You matter to me, and I just met you. Do you know why? Because I see your intelligence in your eyes, your courage in how you're handling this impossible situation, your strength in the fact that you're still here, still hoping. That's who you are, Daniel. Not your disability. You. James's phone rang. It was Linda, his attorney, with information about his legal obligations and options. James listened carefully, asked several questions, and then made another decision. Daniel, here's what's going to happen. First, I'm taking you to breakfast because I'm guessing you're hungry. Then we're going to the police station to file a report about what your father did. Then I'm going to talk to social services about temporary foster placement while we sort this out. And through all of this, I'm going to make sure you're safe, cared for, and treated with the respect you deserve. Does that sound okay? Daniel nodded, unable to speak through his tears. But there's something else, James continued. While we're figuring out the legal stuff, I want you to know that you have options. You're not going to be thrown into some institution and forgotten. I'm going to personally make sure of that. Okay. Why? Daniel asked. Why do you care? You don't know me. James smiled sadly. Because someone should have cared about Tommy, and no one did. Because your mother clearly loved you and believed in you, and she'd want someone to step up. And because Daniel, you remind me that every person we encounter is an opportunity to be better than we were yesterday. Today, you're giving me that opportunity. James helped Daniel into the Mercedes, folding the wheelchair and placing it carefully in the trunk. As they drove away from that bus stop, Daniel looked back at the place where his father had abandoned him. Part of him was still broken by that abandonment. But another part of him was beginning to hope that maybe, just maybe, His mother had been right about people who truly see you. The police station was a blur of questions, paperwork, and serious faces. Detective Maria Rodriguez handled Daniel's case personally, her expression growing darker as she learned the details of what Robert Hayes had done. "We'll find your father," she assured Daniel. "And he'll face consequences for child abandonment. You did nothing wrong, young man. Nothing." While the police searched for Robert, James stayed with Daniel through every interview, every difficult question, every moment when Daniel's voice would shake remembering his father walking away. James's presence was steady, reassuring, a reminder that Daniel wasn't alone anymore. Social services arrived, represented by a woman named Patricia Chen who'd worked in child welfare for 20 years. She'd seen many heartbreaking cases, but something about Daniel's situation and James Mitchell's involvement caught her attention. "Mr. Mitchell, I understand you want to help, but our protocol requires that Daniel be placed in state care while we investigate and find appropriate long-term placement." "I understand," James said calmly, "but I'm formally requesting emergency foster placement approval. I have the space, the resources, and the willingness to provide care while you complete your investigation. I've already had my attorney send over all my background information. I'm fingerprinted, I have no criminal record, and I have experience caring for someone with disabilities, my brother Tommy, who lives on my property." Patricia was taken aback. "Mr. Mitchell, foster care certification takes months. I can't just..." "Then make me a temporary guardian," James interrupted. "Give me whatever legal designation allows Daniel to stay with me instead of going into the system. I'll jump through every hoop, fill out every form, meet every requirement. But don't send this boy to a group home when there's an alternative." Patricia looked at Daniel, who was watching this conversation with hope and fear mixed on his face. She'd seen too many kids lost in the system, passed from facility to facility, never finding a permanent home. And she'd never seen someone like James Mitchell, a millionaire with no obligation or connection, fight this hard for a child he'd just met. "I'll need to do a home inspection," Patricia said slowly. "Today. Right now. And Daniel will need to agree to this arrangement." Everyone turned to Daniel. "Do you want to stay with Mr. Mitchell while we sort this out?" Detective Rodriguez asked. Daniel looked at James, at this stranger who'd stopped when everyone else had passed by, who'd sat with him on a dirty bench, who'd shared his own painful family history, who'd fought for him when he had no reason to care. "Yes," Daniel said. "Yes, please." The home inspection of James's estate was surreal. The house was enormous, a modern mansion with wall-to-wall windows, gleaming hardwood floors, and artwork that probably cost more than most people's cars. But what impressed Patricia Chen wasn't the wealth. It was how James immediately started pointing out accessibility features. "The entire main floor is wheelchair accessible," James explained. "I had it designed that way for Tommy. Wide doorways, roll-in shower in the guest suite, adjustable counters in the kitchen. Tommy's place is out back, but the main house guest room would be perfect for Daniel if he wants privacy." They met Tommy, a gentle man with graying hair and a warm smile. Despite his seizure disorder and the years of institutionalization, Tommy had a kindness about him that immediately put Daniel at ease. "You can stay in the main house, or you can stay in the apartment above my place," Tommy offered. "Either way, you're welcome here. James helped me when no one else would. He's good at that." Patricia completed her inspection, asked hundreds of questions, and reviewed all of James's documentation. Finally, she made her decision. "I'm approving temporary guardianship for 30 days, pending a full investigation and Daniel's father being located. Mr. Mitchell, you'll need to complete foster parent training, and we'll have weekly check-ins. Daniel will continue his education, attend his medical appointments, and receive counseling to process this trauma." "Agreed." "Agreed," James said immediately. That evening, Daniel sat in the guest room of James Mitchell's house, looking around at his temporary new home. The room was bigger than his entire apartment had been. There was a hospital-grade adjustable bed, a large TV, a desk with a computer, and bookshelves that James had said Daniel could fill with whatever he wanted. But Daniel wasn't looking at the luxury. He was looking at a framed photograph James had placed on the nightstand. It showed a young James, maybe 25 years old, with his arm around Tommy at what looked like Tommy's release from the institution. Both of them were smiling, but their eyes showed the pain of years lost. James knocked on the open door. "Settling in okay?" "This is too much," Daniel said. "You don't have to do all this for me." James sat down on the chair beside Daniel's bed. "Daniel, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not doing this out of pity. I'm doing it because I believe you have potential that your father was too blind to see. I saw your backpack. You had 3 books in there, including a college-level astronomy textbook. Patricia told me your grades are excellent despite everything you've been going through. You're smart, you're capable, and you deserve a chance." "But what happens after 30 days?" Daniel asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at him. "What if my dad comes back? What if social services says I have to go somewhere else?" "Then we'll deal with it," James said firmly. "But Daniel, I want you to know something. I've already talked to my attorney about adoption proceedings. If your father's rights are terminated, which they should be after what he did, and if you want it, I'd like to adopt you officially. Make you part of my family permanently." Daniel couldn't breathe. You'd want to adopt me? After knowing me for 1 day?" "I knew within an hour," James said. "Tommy and I have lived in this big house for years, just the 2 of us. There's plenty of room for you, plenty of love, and plenty of support for whatever you want to achieve. You could finish high school, go to college, study astronomy, or anything else that interests you. You could have a future, Daniel. A real future." "But I need so much help," Daniel whispered. "I'm expensive. I'm complicated." "You're worth it," James interrupted. "Every penny, every moment, every bit of effort. You're worth it because you're a human being with dreams and potential and value. The question isn't whether you're worth helping. The question is whether I'm worthy of being your father. That's what I have to prove to you." Daniel was crying again, but this time they were different tears. These were tears of relief, of hope, of feeling seen and valued for the first time since his mother died. "My mom would have liked you," Daniel said through his tears. James smiled. "Then I'm honored. And Daniel, I'm going to spend every day trying to live up to the job she did raising you. Because she clearly did something right. You're a remarkable young man." The next morning, the police found Robert Hayes at Brenda's apartment. When confronted with what he'd done, Robert's defiance crumbled into shame and regret. He'd expected to feel relieved after leaving Daniel, but instead he'd felt nothing but guilt eating him alive. Detective Rodriguez showed him photos of where Daniel was now, living with James Mitchell, safe and cared for. She showed him the preliminary adoption papers James had already filed. "That's my son," Robert protested weakly. "He can't just adopt him." "You abandoned your son at a bus stop like garbage," Detective Rodriguez said coldly. "You left a disabled minor alone with no care, no plan, no protection. You're being charged with child abandonment and endangerment. The state will be pursuing termination of your parental rights. You don't get to call Daniel your son anymore." Robert spent that night in jail, and in the morning, he made a decision. He signed paperwork waiving his parental rights and agreeing to the adoption. It was the one decent thing he'd do for Daniel. Let him go to a family that would actually love him. When James told Daniel that his father had signed away his rights, Daniel felt a confusing mix of emotions. Relief that he wouldn't be sent back to Robert. Grief that his father had chosen to give up on him so completely. And underneath it all, a growing sense that maybe this was what needed to happen for Daniel to have a real future. 2 years later, Daniel Mitchell sat in his wheelchair on the stage of Lincoln High School, wearing a cap and gown and holding a diploma. He just graduated as valedictorian of his class, earning a full scholarship to Northwestern University where he planned to study astrophysics. In the audience, James and Tommy sat in the front row, both of them crying openly with pride. Beside them sat Patricia Chen, the social worker who'd approved that temporary guardianship 2 years ago. She'd watched Daniel transform from a traumatized, abandoned boy into a confident young man ready to take on the world. In his valedictorian speech, Daniel talked about his journey. He spoke honestly about his disability, about being abandoned, about the day at the bus stop when he thought his life was over. He talked about James stopping when everyone else drove past, about learning that his worth wasn't determined by what his body could or couldn't do, but by who he was inside. 2 years ago, I believed I was a burden, Daniel said, his voice clear and strong through the microphone. I believed that my disability made me worth less than other people. I believed that needing help meant I had no value. My father's actions reinforced those beliefs. He paused, looking at James. But then someone showed me a different truth. James Mitchell taught me that everyone needs help sometimes. That accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That my disability is just one aspect of who I am, not the definition of my entire existence. He taught me that family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up for you, who sees you, who chooses to love you even when it's hard. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. I'm standing here today, sitting here today, as proof that one person can change a life. One person who chooses to stop instead of driving past. One person who chooses compassion over convenience. One person who sees value where others see burden. I'm here because James Mitchell decided that I was worth his time, his resources, his love, and I want to challenge all of you to be that person for someone else. After the ceremony, as families gathered for photos and celebrations, Daniel wheeled himself over to where Patricia Chen stood. Thank you, he said simply, for taking a chance on that first day. For approving the guardianship even though it was unusual. For believing I deserved a real family. Patricia hugged him tightly. Daniel, I've been a social worker for 22 years. I've seen thousands of cases. But your story reminds me why I do this job. Sometimes, miracles happen. Sometimes, the system works. And sometimes, people like James Mitchell exist who remind us that there's still profound goodness in the world. James approached, having finished taking photos with Tommy. Ready to go home, son. Son. That word still made Daniel's heart swell. The adoption had been finalized a year ago, on Daniel's 17th birthday. It had been the best birthday present he'd ever received. A legal declaration that he belonged, that he was chosen, that he was loved. Yeah, Dad. Let's go home. As they drove back to the house, Daniel thought about his biological father. He'd heard that Robert had moved to another state, started therapy, and was trying to rebuild his life. Daniel didn't hate him anymore. He'd learned that hate was too heavy to carry. Instead, he felt something closer to pity and forgiveness. His father had been broken, unable to handle the challenges life gave him, and he'd made a terrible choice. But that choice had led Daniel to James, and for that, Daniel was grateful. That evening, the Mitchell family, James, Tommy, and Daniel, sat on the back deck watching the sunset. They'd done this every evening for 2 years, weather permitting. It was their ritual, their time to connect and talk about their days. I've been thinking, Daniel said, about what I want to do with my scholarship money. Northwestern offered a full ride, so I don't need it for tuition. It's your money, Daniel, James said. You earned it. Use it however you want. I want to create a foundation, Daniel said, for kids with disabilities whose families can't afford the equipment and care they need. I want to help prevent other kids from being abandoned because their parents can't handle the financial burden. James looked at his son with immense pride. That's a beautiful idea. I'll match whatever you put in and help you set it up. And I want to call it the Caroline Hayes Foundation, Daniel continued. After my mom. She always said that every person has value and deserves support to reach their potential. That's what the foundation would do, help kids reach their potential regardless of their physical limitations. Tommy spoke up, his voice gentle. Your mom would be so proud of who you've become, Daniel. And so is James. And so am I. Daniel smiled. I'm proud of who I've become too. 2 years ago, I thought my disability defined me. I thought being in a wheelchair meant I was less than everyone else. But Dad taught me that disability is just one part of my story, not the whole story. I'm Daniel Mitchell. I'm smart. I'm loved. I'm going to Northwestern to study astrophysics. And yeah, I use a wheelchair. All of those things are true, and none of them contradict each other. James reached over and squeezed Daniel's shoulder. You know what your mother told you about people who truly see you? She was right. And Daniel, you've taught me to see differently too. Before I met you, I was successful and wealthy, but I wasn't truly living. I was still carrying guilt about Tommy, about not saving him sooner. But helping you, watching you grow, seeing you succeed, it's healed something in me I didn't know was broken. We healed each other, Daniel said. That's what families do. As the sun set over the Mitchell estate, 3 people sat together, each one broken in different ways, each one healed by choosing to see the value in others, each one proof that family isn't about perfection but about showing up for each other every single day. Years later, when Daniel graduated from Northwestern with honors and went on to work for NASA, he never forgot that day at the bus stop. He spoke about it in interviews, wrote about it in his memoir, and used his platform to advocate for disabled individuals and foster care reform. But what he remembered most wasn't the abandonment or the trauma. What he remembered was James Mitchell pulling up in that Mercedes, getting out of his car in his expensive suit, and sitting down on a dirty bus stop bench beside a scared, abandoned teenager. He remembered James saying, "You matter to me, and I just met you." Because those words, spoken by a stranger who chose to stop, had changed everything. They'd given Daniel permission to believe in his own worth. They'd shown him that one person's decision to care could alter the trajectory of an entire life. And they'd taught him the most important lesson of all, that the measure of our humanity isn't found in how we treat people who can give us something in return. It's found in how we treat people who society says don't matter, people who need help, people who are vulnerable and scared and alone. It's found in the choice to stop when everyone else drives past. Asterisk if this story moved you and reminded you that every single person has worth and deserves compassion, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that they matter, that they are valued, that they are not alone. Asterisk. Asterisk, have you ever been helped by a stranger when you needed it most? Have you ever stopped to help someone when it would have been easier to keep going? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone else to be the person who stops, who sees, who cares. Asterisk. Asterisk, remember, disability doesn't diminish worth. Needing help doesn't make someone a burden. Every person you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about, and every person deserves to be seen with dignity and compassion. In a world that often judges people by what they can produce or contribute, be the person who sees value in simply being human. Asterisk. Asterisk, the people we help today might change the world tomorrow. But more importantly, the choice to help changes us. It makes us better, kinder, more human. And that's what this world needs most. People who choose compassion over convenience, who choose to stop when others drive past, who choose to see the value in every single human life. Asterisk. Asterisk, James Mitchell didn't save Daniel that day at the bus stop. They saved each other. Because that's what happens when we choose love over indifference, when we choose to see people as they truly are rather than just their circumstances. We create families, build connections, and change lives in ways we never could have imagined. Asterisk. Asterisk, see you in the next story, where we'll explore another powerful lesson about humanity, sacrifice, and the unexpected ways that compassion transforms both the giver and the receiver. Asterisk.